Hey everyone, and welcome to our DC Films podcast, episode 1. This is something I decided to do, now that it's, summertime, there's not too much to talk about, and Wonder Woman just came out and all this stuff going on. I figured you might as well, talk about the DCEU and everything going on in it with some people that I'm friends with on Tumblr, and some people who I've enjoyed talking to. So in this podcast, we're going to be, again, talking about all things DCEU, and I brought in some people, again, from Tumblr, and if you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves one by one, you guys can go right ahead.
I'll go first. I'm Katie. I'm Story Advocate on Tumblr.
Hi, my name's Lily. I'm Lily Love Comics on Tumblr.
Hi, I'm Jean. I'm Backjectivity on Tumblr.
Hi, my name is Artem. I am Grey Kungwa on Tumblr.
And thank you guys for joining me. It's I know it's tricky getting us all in together considering we're all in different parts of the world, so thank you guys for taking the time to do this with me.
Always.
Yeah. So basically, how we're gonna do this is so in this particular episode, I decided to choose 5 big topics that have been the subject of conversation in the last couple months regarding the DCEU. So we're gonna each kind of go around and give our own little thoughts, and then kind of discuss each topic as a group. So obviously, with the first big topic, I think this has been one of the biggest subjects of the DCEU lately, and it's kind of a tragic one of that. Katie and I kind of talked about it for a little bit in our Man of Steel commentary that we did a couple weeks ago, and it's sad to say, but Zack Snyder, for most of you who know, he stepped down from the production of Justice League due to the unfortunate suicide of his daughter Autumn. And since then, he was working on the film for a little bit, and he decided to take a step back to be with his family and help them grieve, and so he can grieve himself. And we all feel for Zach and his family, and it's a horrible thing to have to go through. And I'm so happy that so many people were able to come together and just let the man grieve without bashing him too much. I mean, granted, there's the dumb people online who just love to bash Zack Snyder, but for the most part, I feel like people have been pretty understanding about the situation. So if everyone wants to give in their thoughts about this whole situation with Zack leaving Justice League.
Well, can I start first, please?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no problem.
Well, of course I can understand him, because you have to be a compassionate person in order to be a decent human being. And so you have to understand Zack, but at the same time you kind of feel sorry that DCEU lost its father at the moment, and we don't know if he returned back eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it just puts under question what exactly is going to become with Justice League as of right now. Mm-hmm. Is it going to come out how Zack Snyder visioned it, or it's going to be drastically changed since now?
I'm pretty sure that it's still going to be Zack's movie.
Mm-hmm.
He finished shooting. He got the first edit together, decided what needed to be shot and what didn't. A lot of it is already there. That's Zack. So at this point, he's handing off a couple reshot scenes for Joss to supervise, and they've already discussed what he wants, and a few, and then some of the minor editing details and overhaul afterward. But when the product is already this much finished, I find it hard to believe suddenly it wouldn't be Zack's vision anymore. I think in a lot of ways, in spite of the fact that he and his family were suffering, he stuck it out as long as he could to kind of make sure that it would be his vision.
Yeah, you kind of have to respect the man who loves his passion so much that he tried so hard to keep going, but unfortunately he had to step out of Justice League.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's understandable. We all can understand.
Yeah, and
a
lot of us at the time, like Justice League aside, the man lost his daughter, so we all understood him wanting to leave. I mean, yeah, it sucks as a fan. You don't want to see a director leave, especially a director we've all come to know and love. But this is a human being, and his family is more important than a movie he's working on. So So when I first saw it, I kind of told this story to Katie, but when I first heard the news, I was literally in tears, and I was going into work that day, and I was just emotionally drained, from someone who I don't even know on a personal level. I just felt so much for Zack. And I mean, I've experienced loss like that. You know, I lost my own mom when I was younger. So when I found out the news about Autumn, I broke down, and I couldn't, like, it didn't feel real to me, even though for someone who I've never known on a personal level, I was deeply affected by it. So again, I could care less about Justice League. The man just lost his daughter, and it's awful to have to see a man go through that, or anyone go through that.
Yep. Yeah,
and it's awful, and I feel it just gets a bit more awful because of the whole situation of Zack Snyder, of like the fact that he felt that he had to tell people about this tragedy just so that they leave him alone.
Yes.
Like, so that they wouldn't all just jump on him, which they did anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a sad statement of the state of the world and the state of the way things are happening, that he's under such persecution, and he knows that if he just steps out, that they'll go ahead and make their own narrative and decide how it's going to be and put out articles with that headline. You know, like, he has to reveal a family tragedy in order for people to understand why he's stepping back. And that's really lame, I got to say, you know?
Yeah.
It's private.
Like, you would think that people have to understand that everyone have their reasons to make certain decisions in their lives, and it's just painful to see that people like need such details in order to, you know, understand exactly why the man does what he does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what, like, it was, I mean, it's like now that we're like about like a month out from when, you know, the news dropped about Autumn. Now, unfortunately, I am seeing a lot more of people who are like, oh, Justice League's gonna go under heavy reshoots, and why Joss Whedon is the better choice for the DCEU, and it's like, you guys couldn't wait at all to just really jump on the back on that bandwagon of, oh, Zack Snyder sucks and Joss Whedon's gonna save the DCEU. Like, none, like, I feel like they're all ignoring the statements that came out immediately after that. That, like, it's still Zack's vision above all else. Like, Josh is only in there to help finish post production.
Yep.
I'm actually kind of worried that, like, no matter what happens with Justice League, if the critics decide to bash it, it will be blamed on Snyder. But then if they decide that it's a good movie, then they're all going to say it's because of Whedon.
Yeah.
You have a legitimate concern there, and I agree. This is probably what's going to happen. And it's infuriating and very, very frustrating to see them just spin their own narrative however they want it to be to fit their viewpoint, because that's not at all how it should be.
And I still don't get the hate he gets. Like, I can understand, you know, you don't like his movies, whatever, but people just viciously attack him, and they forget that he's a human being. They're just like, oh, he made something that I hate, so therefore he needs to die. And they say all these terrible, terrible things, and it's like, again, this is a human being. And
I never understood that either.
Yep.
Like, why? Mind-boggling.
Is it just that, like, he likes to go for these fan things, and he always adds something to it, and it kind of, like, goes against fans' expectations. And then you know that fans are, like, fans of especially the kind of media that he likes to go for, which is, like, comic books of, like, very male-dominant sort of genres, like, I don't know, Watchmen or 300 or something, where, and like, he goes into these genres in which the fans are pretty much the most defensive kind of their interpretations, I guess.
I think you have a point there, yep, and he
just creates sucker
punch. So, yeah. Plus, I will say, like, Zack, his visual style is different than anybody else's.
Yep.
Like, and, you know, that's, like, inarguable. And it's, I don't know, unfortunately, humans we're kind of cranky, and we don't like change very much.
Yep.
And so, very often, if something is new and different, we'll immediately reject it out of hand just because, you know, it's like the 5-year-old that's like, oh, that's a new food on my plate, and I don't like it. It's like, you haven't even tried it. You didn't even get a chance. No, I don't like it. And you know, so his unapologetic, continual way of doing it the way he would like to do it, I think in a lot of ways offends the pride of people because they feel like he should conform to what the masses want, so to speak. I'm making quote fingers here with the masses, but you know what I mean? In the end, they want him to do what they want, and he doesn't. And the more he doesn't, the more angry they get. It's really weird, you know. And I will also say that he has a way more layered way of storytelling. I mean, look at Batman versus Superman. That thing,
Has so
all I
many
can
layers.
ever say about it, it's like Shakespeare, guys. It's
Yes,
so
that's
many
exactly
layers.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, so many different interpretations and symbolism and textual layers and stuff like that. It's very dense. I, for one, love that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But the basic person does not like it. And so they will not make an attempt to get too farther into it. They just want the surface. And if that's not what it gives, then they get angry. But I agree, the amount of vitriol that comes out in their disappointment is kind of embarrassing. It's like, guys,
It
this
is.
is the kind of stuff that should be reserved for the guy who killed your dog, or, you know, murdered your family, or burned down your house. You know, like,
Not a guy
should
who
not
made
be
a movie he
reserved for
didn't
a
like.
guy who's making movies, you know.
Okay, I mean, it's like maybe you walked into a movie expecting like Romeo and Juliet or Midsummer Night's Dream, and you go in and you come out and you seem to have watched Hamlet.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Like it's like you like maybe it's just too heavy, than like too much heavier than what people expected from the movies, which is why they
Yeah.
just feel so bitter about it.
It's another problem. People put too many expectations, and when it doesn't live up to their expectations, they immediately start to bash.
Yep, they
and
feel
they
betrayed.
didn't like it. But
Yes.
it's this what Katie, what you described about why people hate Zack Snyder. This is actually the one thing I love about this man is that
Same.
he stays true to himself, to
Yep.
his vision, even
Yep.
when Man of Steel was bashed by critics mostly. He still made Batman v Superman the movie that he wanted to.
Yep.
But unfortunately, he had to cut a theatrical version, and only those who bought Blu-ray saw the movie that he wanted to show. And in my opinion, Ultimate Edition is like a superior movie to theatrical version, and I'm actually sad that Warner Brothers did not allow Ultimate Edition to be run in theaters.
I would agree with that, and I do think it's superior. But I will also say, even the first time in the theater, the theatrical version, it still stuck with me enough that I loved it. I loved it enough to go back like 9 times, I
Same,
think. I lost
same.
count. You know, like, I still loved it. And I do admit that the Ultimate is superior, but even sitting in the theater watching the theatrical version, it was like, holy crap, this thing is amazing. I love this movie. And yeah, I guess it saddens me that people can't get there. I think
Yeah.
expectations are a very double-edged sword. You have to be so careful because in our own minds, like I know myself, I find that watching like something that puts out a small bit at a time and then leaves you like on a cliffhanger or something like that and has a week in between is actually bad for me because I spend all week thinking about how's it going to go? What's going to happen next? What's going to do this? And I get my expectations built up to this crazy place that can't ever be met. And then when I watch it, I'm disappointed. It's way better for me to wait for it to all be together, all be out, and just do it all at once because then I'm not sitting in the middle and obsessing a week in between. And so these are the same. Like the promotion and stuff is always going to be big. That's what movies do nowadays. But we have to be so careful because if we let it build up in our minds that it's going to be this amazing, holy crap, fulfill all my wishes, all my dreams and desires thing, holy crap, then it's never going to be able to meet that expectation, and we will always come out disappointed. So we have to be so careful with expectations because they will bite us.
Yeah. And for
Zack
me,
Snyder never follows the kind of normal structure for any of his movies.
No.
Like, compare the structure of Man of Steel to Wonder Woman. Like Wonder Woman is much more traditional in its origin story presentation,
Yep.
isn't it? It's very like linear. Whereas Man of Steel, I love the non-linear storytelling so much.
me too.
Same. Yep.
I think that it was a really great choice to tell Clark's story through flashbacks because they were like resonating. The events that he experienced in the present, they were resonating with his experiences from the past, and you saw that like literally. You saw him go through one thing in the present, and then you see how a thing from the past resulted him into the person that he became today, and it was amazing. I think that using the flashbacks was the best choice for Man of Steel.
Oh yes, perfectly stated. You're right. Every one of them was like lined up to show you how, how they shaped who he became. That was perfectly said. Well done. And I agree. It was a thing of beauty.
It really was, and that's why, like, I think, like, especially with superhero movies, like, I mean, I hate comparing Marvel to DC because obviously they're two very different things, but I think a lot of people will see the Marvel movies. And they're very simplistic stories. Like, whether you love them or hate them, they're very simplistic stories. Like, there's somewhat of an origin story. There's a bit of a struggle in the middle. There's a big battle in the end. Good guy wins for the most part. It's very just like it's very cut and dried. There's not too many layers to each film. While some films I think are pretty good, I think for the most part they're all more or less like story structure wise. They're all kind of laid out the same way, so because it's easy for audiences to follow along. And so I think, like, with Batman vs. Superman especially, people went in thinking, like, oh, it's going to be a movie about Batman and Superman fighting, and then that's going to be pretty much it. But when people saw that there was more to it, they're like, oh, whoa. I wasn't ready to think heavily about a superhero movie. I was just expecting just eat my tub of popcorn and drink my soda and just have a good time. And a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people that didn't like that, so they're like, oh, this is boring. Why is there so much talking? Why is there not, like, all this action and stuff like that? Like, there's some people in my life who are just like, yeah, I just saw Batman vs. Superman and it was boring, and I'm like I find and of course these are like friends and family, so I'm not gonna be like, oh, who are you? You're done. Like, I'm not gonna like insult them or anything, but in my head I'm like how do you like, I don't understand. Like, me personally, I don't get it because I see nothing but a brilliant, like, from the first time I saw it in the theatrical cut to when I saw the Ultimate Edition for the first time, like, I saw nothing short of a brilliant film. And like, I can understand some people maybe not liking it, but the hate it gets, to this day, I still don't get it. Like, I watched that movie, like, so much to the point where, like, every time I watch it, I find something little detail about it that I'm just like, oh my god, like, how did I not see that the first time? And I'm just like, that's the thing about Zack Snyder as a filmmaker. There's so many layers to his movies, from Watchmen to Man of Steel to this and everything he's done. I just feel like, maybe when he was first announced as the director for Man of Steel, I'll admit I'm just like, huh? Because I'd only ever seen Watchmen at that point. Because I'm like, okay, like, fine, like, and then I saw Man of Steel like this time 4 years ago. It's funny because I forgot to bring this up. I mean, I brought this up in our little group chat, but we're recording this on the 4-year anniversary of the release of Man of Steel, so I thought that's kind of funny.
Like, is this 4 years, man? I can't believe I've loved this movie that long.
Oh god, I know.
It feels really
4 years have really flown by. But because I remember I go in and watch that movie for the first time, and I was already super excited for it, like, as a Superman fan. And I walked out, and I'm like, oh my god, like, that is, like, my new favorite movie. Like, and not even because it was a Superman movie, but because of how, again, the storytelling was, and how relatable these characters were. That, like, he gave us a Superman that is flawed, and that is struggling with what it means to do the right thing, and to hide yourself from the world, and to have, like, the weight of the weight of the world on your shoulders, and, like, your parents are telling you, like, it might not be the best idea to come out to the world because they might reject you, and, like, in the struggle that Clark has throughout that entire movie, and he has this one person in Lois Lane who accepts him for who he is, and it's a beautiful story, and that's what I like. Every movie in the DCEU I've seen of Zack Snyder's, it's like each movie I love so much. The more I watch it, that's why all this news with Zack leaving Justice League, and I'm hoping. I mean, they already stated that they will, but I think Joss is going to keep his vision, because I think, whether people love him or hate him, I think Zack Snyder's vision is important to the DCU and how it moves forward.
Yep.
Because there is that story progression with each movie, and if all of a sudden it goes from, like, this, like, emotionally heavy film to, like, Batman and Aquaman joking every 2 seconds, then it's not going to feel real. It's not going to feel like a genuine story, like a real meaningful story. It's going to feel like, oh, great, now it's another generic blockbuster, Like, I think all the filmmakers involved, Joss and everyone, understand the importance of Zack Snyder's vision for Justice League and the DCEU. So I think even with this tragedy with Zack, I do think that it is important to keep his vision moving forward. I think they all understand that.
Yep.
Yeah, I hope that he stays involved in the future of this series, even if he doesn't take on such heavy roles because of his family and stuff. Like just not just for, like, Justice League, but for future movies as well. Like, he had to set the tone for Wonder Woman for sure.
Yeah.
By coming up with that whole backstory for her, which, like, we've never seen before. And that was just beautiful decision. Yeah, I don't know.
Agreed.
I just hope that if Zack is going to return, he will return rebuilt as a person, because if he stays broken, it might affect his future work. So I really hope that he will come through this tragedy.
Yeah, and we all are just praying that he and our thoughts are with Zack and his family throughout this really tough time, and he take all the time he needs to recover and be there for his family,
Yes.
and we'll be there for him if and when he comes back. And he's obviously, we all love him as a filmmaker, and we just want nothing but the best for him. So
Yep.
our thoughts and prayers are there with his family. So
Yeah.
another subject that I want to talk about, and since we just kind of touched on it briefly, the release and success of Wonder Woman. So I saw the movie this time 2 weeks ago, and I loved it. And there was a part of me that was watching this movie, I'm just like, again, like, it almost like, I know it's Patty Jenkins, but you can really feel Zack's like hands in the story, and in a lot of ways it does feel very much like a Zack Snyder movie, even though obviously it's Patty Jenkins and she has her own way of storytelling, and I loved it. But I walked out of the movie so happy that I got just the story that I did with Wonder Woman, and Gal Gadot did such an amazing thing. So overall, like, what is everyone else's thoughts on Wonder Woman itself as a movie and the overall success that it's had in box office and with critics?
I mean, I loved it. I thought it was great.
I saw the movie twice and I really liked it. Especially, I see the DCEU as, the idea of the Watchmen. Alan Moore wanted to show how the existence of superheroes would affect the real world's history. And I think that what Zack Snyder did with Man of Steel is that he tried to show how Superman's existence would affect our world, how we would react to the existence of an alien. And in Wonder Woman, you kind of saw this transition from this Paradise Island that represented like this fairy tale-ish comic books universe with Diana's naivety, her almost childish perception of the world, and once she and Steve come into the world of men, you see this transgression into this grim and real, almost ugly world of real people who kill each other, and for as it would seem, for no reason. And she was disgusted by it at some point, and you kind of feel right here that it was Zack's influence on this movie. He put Wonder Woman into real world, and he tried to show how her existence would affect the reality, and I liked it, just like Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, because if Man of Steel was about Clark coming out as Superman to the real world, Batman vs Superman was talking about the world accepting Superman character, and they did by the end, which is the reason to love this movie even more, because it proved that heroes like Superman can actually exist, that positivity and absolute goodness are possible if you try hard enough.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts.
I completely agree.
Completely agree. Yeah, and I really appreciated that, because I don't know, it makes it more real, and I think that's a big thing, is that people want escapism, but I actually appreciate seeing the real world reflected in here, and how would it react? How would heroes react? Being introduced to it. How is this gonna go? It makes it far more interesting to me, and even in Wonder Woman, like, she saves that village, and then they all get gassed. Like, I was realizing a couple days later, I was like, oh my gosh, that's part of why the whole legend of Wonder Woman didn't really seep out of World War I and infect the consciousness, or why they weren't really aware of her, even though she was living among them, because all the people that really have a good memory and might have told their children and their children's children about her all got killed. And so it's really a sobering thing to realize that her big beautiful moment in saving that village was wonderful, and then they all die anyway. And that's war, and that's this world, that's the human world. We do bad things, And I really appreciated the message that they were giving, that, you know, it's not just one bad god making everybody do this. It's not some spell that's over everyone. You know, it's our own individual choices, and we are very, very not perfect. And I really appreciated that aspect. And I agree, I could feel Zack's influence in that story element.
And that's one of the things I loved about Aries too as a villain. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm making everyone bad and therefore like I'm the reason for the world's problems. Like, no, like he whispers in the ears of those who are already going to do bad choices, but mankind's downfall is because of mankind itself. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the movie, because you saw that the villain, while he obviously had a hand in all these terrible things, it was humanity that was doing this thing, all these horrible things to themselves. And I just and for Wonder Woman to be able to come out on top of that and saying like, you know, like love, I know this is cheesy to paraphrase, but love conquers all. And that, I think, is a really powerful message, especially in today's day and age, to have such a hopeful and optimistic character like that saying that like love is what's going to save us all. You know? And that's one of the many things I loved about the movie and its message.
Agreed. And I appreciated how unapologetic they were about it. You know, like, you're right, everybody, you know, all of us cynicals in the world are like, well, that's cheesy. And Patty was like, nope, cheesy is a word that does not exist in my, you know, in my world. She said, you know, we have a fear of acknowledging true sincerity. And I think we should get past that and not just immediately distance and call it cheesy. And I really appreciated that, and I love that, because it is true that actually loving and accepting and giving in spite of whether they deserve or not is going to be what saves us from ourselves. But, you know, it's all a matter of whether we can get there. Yeah. But it was a really beautiful message, and I really appreciated that.
Got me too. And go ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, as in what Arthur was saying was about seeing all the Watchmen influences in like in everything that Zack has put into this universe. Like especially when Batman v Superman came out, he was mentioning how like creating Watchmen, like having the opportunity to direct Watchmen, influenced his perspective when approaching the DCEU so much, and you can really see it. But in a way, the DCEU is actually a complete opposite take to what the Watchmen is about. Because the Watchmen is ultimately a very pessimistic look at humanity. It ends with the only way to bring peace is to kill 3 million people or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? But on the other hand, he takes all of that. He takes all of the realism in that and all the human reactions, and he ends it on a positive note. He ends it with this optimism that like humanity can ultimately be good despite our failings, and that heroes can ultimately prevail and heroes can be ultimately good despite like the way humanity is, right? So that's a kind of a little gripe I had with the end of Wonder Woman, the movie, because I thought it was a bit it tried too hard to be a bit self-contained, because, you know, we all know in Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman says that 100 years ago I walked away from mankind, which implies that at the end of the Wonder Woman movie, she doesn't fight for another 100 years, despite the fact that obviously there were other conflicts later on. There was World War II, there was all the wars that came after that, and she apparently did not fight for any of them, or something. But like the movie didn't seem to bring that across, which
I did wonder about that myself.
Me too.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. You're just like, because the movie did not imply that, it implied that because of Steve's sacrifice, which was obviously a really powerful and beautiful sacrifice, that Diana was still motivated to fight for love. But if you look at what she says in BVS and the way that she's been presented in the previous movie, is that while what Steve did inspired her to keep going, it wasn't enough to convince her of humanity's ultimate good. And what ultimately convinced her was Clark's sacrifice.
Yep.
I feel like the movie skipping over that, like Wonder Woman movie skipping over that, kind of, that's a bit disappointing, because Clark's sacrifice was such a huge, monumental thing to happen.
Yeah.
So
well,
something I love so much. Yeah.
I think the reason why she's the way she is in Batman vs Superman is that, you see, when when they caught Steve in the lasso and he told them about the war, he called it the war to end all wars. And once Steve sacrificed himself for this cause, she thought that this war would be the last. And yet humanity kept fighting. They kept creating new wars. And I think she was just disappointed that humanity itself did not respect the sacrifice of another human that tried to save the world with his sacrifice. And I think this is what drove her from humanity, I think.
Now, that's a very good way to look at it. I didn't even think about that. I mean, I wouldn't say it was a problem I had, but I had that question too of like that because of that line in BVS. But now that you explain it the way you did, that does make a lot of sense. That like she thought Steve's sacrifice would kind of end. Well, I mean, it did end that war, but there are so many wars to come that like she probably saw that and she's like, no matter how much I try, no matter how much I fight, there's going to be war. So that's probably why she did end up stepping away from mankind and not really get herself involved in this, because like no matter what she does, there's always going to be another war.
Second movie material. Let's go.
Yeah, I do agree with your point though about it undercutting Clark's sacrifice and you know, kind of regenerating her. So I'm really curious now to see where Wonder Woman 2 is going to go.
Me too.
You know what I mean? Are they going to keep the theme going and then end it with her deciding she's done for a while and then Clark regenerate, or what? You know, like, I'm really curious to see how that will go. And I agree with the 100 years kind of makes it hinky.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the only continuity difference in this entire franchise so far. But, you know, it just, it does stick with me and make me wonder.
Yeah.
I do have a question I would like to know. Apparently, like I admit, I haven't seen a whole lot of it, but I haven't gone looking either. I heard vaguely through the grapevine that there was whining and complaining about Aries. And I wanted to know what everybody thought about Aries as a villain.
Oh, I love Aries. I love him.
Oh god, yeah. No, as in, okay, me and my friends, as maybe the childish teenagers we are, we all just found him a little lame. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I just, it's not that he wasn't a great villain, it's just that he ultimately didn't present a very imposing figure.
Okay, and I agree. I think that's what most of us expect out of a villain, is that he's big, and he's
imposing.
bad, and he's really, really evil. And I think it's actually interesting, and again, points back to kind of Zack's vision of the DCEU, that she views him as the big bad too. He is the big bad villain causing all of this, and then when she meets him, he's tired and just completely disillusioned. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that's what he says. You know, I give them the ideas, but I don't make them use them. They do it themselves. Like, they suck so hard, they just need to die, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's actually really interesting, I thought, the acting choice to choose to play him, because, first of all, it makes for a beautiful surprise when we're all like, oh, you know, because everybody's been led to believe that it's the other guy. Oh, gosh, I can't remember his name. You know, but instead, it's this small, weak, you know, cane holding, you know, mustache wearing, just tiny little Brit guy, and you don't think much of him, and that's a perfect way to, you know, to move unseen amongst everybody and not be seen as a threat. And then when he finally assumes his true form, you know, makes himself armor out of the carnage that he's created on this airfield, you know, even behind the mask, it's wild to me. He still has this funny look in his eyes of just tired and disillusioned with this, you know, with the world, and he has been forever, you know. But it's really interesting to me, and I agree. Like, we don't look at him and go, "Wow, best villain ever." But at the same time, I think it fit very much the theme and the tone and the motif that is continually recurring in this film. That do mankind deserve, you know, the grace and support of higher beings, you know, or are they just something that should be let to kill each other and be done with it? And so that fits perfectly, and I thought that was actually really a really interesting way to go, and I thought it was neat. So that's just me.
Yeah, and I can understand why maybe he wasn't universally loved by people. Unfortunately for me, because the casting, that actor, I think his name was David Thewlis. they've been saying that he's been Aries for a while now, so unfortunately that twist wasn't really a twist for me when watching the movie.
Agreed. All I did was mutter, I knew it, you know?
Yeah, but at the same time, when it came around that when the twist finally was revealed, I'm like, I still enjoy it as a twist piece. Again, like much like you said, he's not like the typical physically imposing villain. He's again like he's old, he's tired, and he does like he sees this opportunity to. First of all, he's trying to recruit his sister into like join me, like you're above them, like they don't deserve you,
Exactly.
I mean, of course, again, he's not a physically imposing villain. He doesn't necessarily look evil. I think that also kind of plays into the whole theme of the DCEU is that these villains aren't just like cookie cutter bad guys. That like, if you look at Zod or Lex, they're not like. While Zod can be like, while Zod could have been like a physically imposing guy, he was there. He wasn't like, oh, I need to destroy Earth because I'm a bad guy. Like no, he was trying to save his race. Lex saw Superman as a god, and Lex was trying to prove to the world that Superman was not a god. And Lex is also not this physically imposing dude. He's this small, frail little guy. And then you have an older, frail, smaller guy in Wonder Woman be the physically imposing god of, or like this supposedly physically imposing god of war. And it's just like, to me, like, I love what they did with Aries, and again I get people who think he's lame or whatever, but for me personally, I just saw so much more than what was there at face level to Aries,
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and I will say he was built up to be the god of war, and then by the time their altercation happens, he says, "I'm not the god of war, I'm the god of truth," and it was like, oh, that's really actually interesting to me because. He's not this big, imposing, make all the war happen, stuff like that. He's the god of truth, the truth of, if you do this, you could probably decimate your enemy. And he's the god of truth in that he's implying, I see the truth about these people, and they are not worthy. And, you know what I mean? And I'm the god of truth, giving you the truth, which nobody else would even give you, not even your mother. It's really, really interesting. And a god of truth doesn't really have to be a big, imposing, amazing bad guy, so I like fighter, like a big buff guy, so it was really interesting.
Me too. And that's why go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say that I would have liked to see more of Dr. Poison. I don't know much about it,
me too.
Agreed. And I do think it's open that she could come back, but I also think, again, keeping with the theme, it was interesting because you're right, they kind of built her up to be the bigger villain than than she ended up being. But in the end, she is just, I can't remember, somebody described it really well. He jumps out of the car, they're in the middle of a raging, whirling, firestorm and stuff like that, and the wind peels away her mask. And he's asking her to see just this undeserving, evil person, but instead Diana looks at her and sees this damaged, injured, hurting person, and that's why she does the evil she does. It's really a very insightful and interesting ending because I do admit, and I'm not trying to bash here, it's just I don't think I would see that in a Marvel film. I would see that here in the DC universe where it's not always as easy as it seems. It's not always black and white, and it's not nearly as simple as people want to believe. And so that was actually really interesting. But I agree that I'm like, all right, so give me more backstory. What's going on with you? Let's see what happens. But, it's not like she could take on Wonder Woman in a fight. But with the right weapon she built, she might, So I would kind of love to see her return just out of sheer curiosity and wanting more.
Yeah, go ahead.
About Aries, even though everyone thinks that he looked kind of funny, but that scene on the tower when he put off this mask of a politician and became a god, at this moment he actually felt intimidating.
Agreed.
I like what you said about DCU villains. They're actual intellectuals. They think about their motivations. They have an actual reason to act, and in some twisted way, you kind of understand their motivations, and you might be even slightly rooting for them because if you look at the situation from their perspective, they might actually have a point of their worldview, and this is what Aries represented. He was an intellectual villain. He was like Diana's Lex Luthor at the same time. Just like Zod. He was a mix of Zod and Lex, I
very
think.
Much so, yeah.
Yes.
And again, I walked away from Wonder Woman. Like, I just like I don't go like it's getting a lot of praise, but I think that even then, like, I still see there are so many layers to this movie as well. And I brought this up to Katie after I first saw the movie. We were talking about it in our Man of Steel commentary. There are so many parallels from Diana's origin to Clark's origin. I just feel like there's so many parallels between Man of Steel and this movie. And I'm so happy that this movie is getting the love that it's getting, because I think it's one of the most important movies to come out. Like, to have one of the few female-led superhero characters to be directed by a female director, I think that's so important, and there's so much support and love for this movie. Granted, I could go without the continual bashing of Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman,
but please.
I feel like Aries, where I'm tired of it, you know. But
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
This is like the only issue I have with Wonder Woman's success is that people use this as a reason to bash everything that came before in DCEU.
Yeah.
But also, it's funny because at my work, everyone's been talking about seeing the movie, and people talk about it. Well, I'm like, oh, well, if you love the movie, if you watch Batman vs Superman, she's in that, and they're like, what, really? So I've been trying to convince people to watch Batman vs Superman.
It's like one of the best entrances of all time, man.
Oh God, I know.
It's like, oh, look, she's here, and she just say Batman and listen to that theme. Oh, you know, like.
But speaking of the theme, one thing I do want to bring up though is I kind of wish they used her theme a little more. Because
I feel like they didn't use it enough.
Yeah. I mean, I loved the score, don't get me wrong. It was a very powerful score. Yeah. I just feel like in certain action sequences, the theme came in a little late, and that I don't know.
I actually watched a video on analyzing this. I could try and find it for you guys, but basically it was explaining that particular theme, Hans Zimmer originally wrote it as a sort of representation of the warrior Diana, right? And so when composing this, the score for this movie, the guy who scored this movie, I can't remember his name.
Rupert something.
I know he also scored the movie. Okay.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So the guy who was scoring this movie, he said that he was trying to build off that theme and also build up to it, because up till that point when in the warehouse when we finally actually hear the cello theme, Diana really hasn't stepped into her role as a warrior yet.
Good point.
She's still growing, she's still developing, and then you hear hints of it over and over during her fight scenes when she's growing up, and just like when she crosses no man's land and such. But she never really becomes that big confident warrior, that Wonder Woman character, until she gets into that warehouse and she's ready and she's fighting. But then after that, towards the end, when she's not really the warrior anymore, when she's being driven by her emotions and such, because you know that Diana as a warrior in her prime would be the kind of she's detached from what she's fighting. You know, she's not emotionally involved in it. You know, she'll fight someone, she'll cut you down, but she won't do it unnecessarily. She'll do it because it's what she has to do.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
That's Diana as a warrior. So beyond that, the theme changes.
Yeah. Sorry, that's what I was going to say before you brought it up. I'm glad you did, because that's kind of how I see it, you know, and it is interesting. It really kind of it represents Diana in the world. You remember when Hans Zimmer mentioned that in coming up with this theme, they wanted something that gave kind of just a little bit of a different, you know, it's just like with the Man of Steel music, they wanted something that represented that outer worldly quality. They don't
something
quite
a bit feminine as well.
Yeah, they're not quite
was like a benchy wheel.
You know, and so they wanted that, and that was one of the first things we ever got with Diana, even in Batman vs Superman, before her true theme kicked in, was just that electric cello, that made her exotic and made her stand out and not quite be somebody that fit in with the rest of us. And so with that, like, you're right, she fits in just fine in Themyscira. She fits in just fine with her, her mother and all the other Amazons. She, like, it's not until she gets out into man's world and then starts truly reaching her potential in man's world that her theme starts to kick in, and that's where it's like, this is Wonder Woman in man's world theme, and so I think that the cello, it fits with that. It still preserves her outer worldly superhero status, so to speak, because she's not like the rest of us.
Yeah. And I get it. And it's funny because
that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's funny you guys bring that up now that I think about it. If you rewatching Man of Steel, I realize you don't really hear the new Superman theme until the end of the movie. Once Clark is like officially Superman,
Yep.
Yeah, I totally think that now I even notice another parallel between the two, that their themes don't really kick in until they start truly embrace who they're meant to be.
Yep. And usually that's towards the end, because this is their origin story. They're growing and moving into it. They don't just pop up halfway through the movie fully developed and ready to go. This entire movie is an origin story showing the progression from their starting point to the truly realized superhero that we all want, or think about when we think about them. And so I agree. Yes, it's always going to happen right at the end, and when they really hit that moment.
Yeah. All right.
By the way,
go ahead.
Excuse me. In Wonder Woman, have you noticed how similar these two scenes from Man of Steel and Wonder Woman were? In Man of Steel, when Zod comes into Clark's mind on his ship, they're like in this illusionary world where he shows him how Earth will be rebuilt as Krypton on ashes of humanity. And then you see kind of very similar scene with Aries and Diana when they are in this also imaginary world, and he shows how the world will be without humans. It's like there were very similar two scenes. And
yes, and it is a thing of beauty. It's such a gorgeous parallel. And I know that's what you're talking about, Nick, when you were like, I want to talk about this, but I hadn't quite seen the movie yet.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And then after he presents that idea to her, she says almost, it's not exact, but it's almost word for word the same line Clark says, and that she says, that's not something I can be part of. Like, he says, I can't be a part of that. Like, they both are saying, that's not something that I can be okay with, and it was a really beautiful parallel.
Yeah. And also remember, because I was trying to talk this about Katie, the whole visual storytelling when they were talking about the history of Zeus and the fall of Zeus because of Aries and all that stuff. The visuals very much so reminded me of when Jor-El was talking to Clark about the origins of Krypton and kind of how Zod kind of came to power and all that stuff. I thought those are also very really cool storytelling parallels.
Yep.
I think it was great that they didn't shoot it with real actors, and they gave it a unique visual looking. It was great.
Yes, and they did that with both of them, and they made it both something that would fit in their origin world. They have, for Man of Steel, it's the kind of liquid metal display giving everything. For Themyscira, it's more of a classical, painting / montage. And it was really, really cool. It was great style and great in keeping with the world, the movie they're trying to portray. They don't just revert back to the same thing over and over. It was really cool.
Yeah.
All part of just the world building that they're putting into this entire universe.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yep.
I love the world building. That's one of the things I love about the DCEU is its continuous world building. And before we move on to the next subject, I just want to mention I loved the new DC Films intro. They have the shows all of the Justice League.
Yes.
Yes, I had my phone out to film the opening to Wonder Woman because I was on my phone, and I was so stunned by the new intro that I missed it.
Oh.
I was so angry.
I loved it. And I think, because if you look at it, because people have already started to break it down character by character, but I think showing all those characters, I think all of those characters, at least at some point that are featured in that little intro, are going to be featured in the DCU at some point, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw the breakdown for that. It was amazing.
Yeah, because they had all the different Green Lanterns. They had Shazam. They had Black Adam. They had Hawkman, and they had pretty much every major DC character. I just and just that little intro, I'm just oh my god, this is little things like that are reasons why I keep looking forward to the DCEU, because it's they keep giving me things I have to look. I can go on and on about how much I love the DCEU.
Yeah. This intro, it was totally unexpected. Me and my friends were sitting at the theater, and when we saw Batman Superman? What the hell is going on? And then this a bunch of DC characters standing in front of you, and you're like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And the best part is that it was Superman who was in the center.
Yes.
Even though DC is very Batman-centric as of late, it was really nice to see that they put Superman in front of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Completely agree. I love how they've made him the center of the entire universe, and it all started with him. It's so cool. Can I segue a little bit to just squee, amazingly about oh my gosh, how cool were the Amazons? Oh my gosh, can I just have a whole movie with the Amazons? Can you just give me holy crap, this is awesome, I want more, give me more. And all the behind the scenes stuff, realizing that they brought in actual athletes and awesome women and stuff like that, all different shapes, sizes, ages. I was so stoked.
And we're gonna see more of them in Justice League.
Yeah,
I know.
Judging from the trailer, there is going to be a flashback war between Amazons and Apocalypse Army and
Atlanteans too.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I agree. I'm pretty sure that Hippolyta and Antiope have been
they're confirmed.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be some Lord of the Rings level.
Oh yeah, it to me, as someone who's only seen Lord of the Rings once, that scene from the Justice League trailer where they show the Amazons and the humans and everyone fighting the Apocalyptian army, it was very reminiscent of Lord of the Rings to me, and I think it's that's why I think Justice League is going to continue just great track of DCEU and visually awesome movies. So yeah.
Yep.
All right, so
and I remember seeing that in the trailer and going, you know what? If anybody can direct that scene really awesome, it's gonna be Zack.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of stoked for it. Give me the flashback scene. I can't wait to see this. This is gonna be really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm very excited.
Me too. All right,
very excited.
All right, so one of the other things I want to talk about too is we only need to spend too much time on this one. I just kind of want to get everyone's thoughts on a couple months ago they announced this, so this isn't exactly new news, but kind of everyone's thoughts on Joss Whedon directing a solo Batgirl movie.
I love Batgirl, so I just hope he does her justice. I wasn't sure, but I'm gonna give him a chance.
Yeah, I mean. For myself, I enjoyed the first Avengers movie. I really did. The second one,
me too.
The second one, I think had a lot of problems, and I think that's where I'm like, okay, I'm not as confident in Joss Whedon anymore. And that's why when I first heard that he was gonna direct Batgirl, I'm like, you couldn't have gotten anyone else. I'm not saying he's not talented. I just, and I know I know Buffy was really popular, and he's done a lot of great things, especially with female characters. But I'm just. Because of Age of Ultron from Marvel, I have a bad taste in my mouth from that.
Age of Ultron, oh my god, my biggest disappointment.
My biggest issue is not the second Avengers movie even, which I totally agree had its problems. I'm not saying that. My biggest worry is that, have you guys ever found I'm not sure where to find it, but I know you can find it. The script that he wrote for Wonder Woman.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's bad.
That is what makes me go, oh god, please don't let him have Batgirl. I don't even know Batgirl. You know what I mean? I don't read the comics, so I don't know much about her, but I know enough to be like, please don't pull something like that in her movie. Don't do that to her, Joss. I will find you and hurt you myself. I know these are just movies, but the Wonder Woman, it was bad. It was all Steve Trevor centric. She was this naive, lame girl who, had to suffer to be a hero, and he was constantly talking down to her and kind of telling her, what this world is about and how lame she was for not understanding it. It was just bad. At one point, he's talking about how the world is suffering and stuff, and she wants to be the hero to stand up and help them. And he's like, yeah, but, you're not a hero. You're just a tourist. She's just a tourist there.
What?
You can go back to her island anytime. Yeah, and it was like, what? So this is what worries me. It's like, okay, Joss, now, I always try my best to come in with open expectations and just give it a shot before I judge. I really do. And it has really served me well. But here I admit, I'm like, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm still going to do that. But, he really cannot go that direction or I'm going to be angry. And I don't even love this character as much as many, many other people do. And so, all I can say is that, if Zack doesn't completely step out of producing, and helping with the DCEU, then he's going to have some say, and I deeply hope that kind of influence can help point it in the right direction. And then I think it would be fine. Joss doesn't horribly suck. He has issues sometimes with female heroes, and I want to make sure he gets it right for this universe.
That's why I hope that this movie has a lot more female involvement in the writing room and all that stuff, because you look at Wonder Woman, because of the vision of Patty Jenkins, obviously she wasn't the sole person telling that story. She had Zack and Jeff Johns and all these people working with her.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be Joss's movie just for the sake of it being Joss's movie. I want it to be a team effort of a mixture of the visions of the creators of the DCEU, as well as just bringing in people who understand the character and understand how to write a female character and have it not be just I worry because it's a guy writing a female-led movie, and granted, Wonder Woman was written by men, but with Joss, it can really go either way. It can be really good, or it could be really forced, white men written feminism. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I will say, I don't want to go back to Wonder Woman, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but at the same time, you can feel Patty's influence in that entire movie.
Yeah.
And it is a thing of beauty. I cannot tell you, I didn't realize, I am so old, it's it has been so many years since I've seen a movie where even her costume is not insanely covering, but the camera is never focusing on all the bits that a man camera normally would. I spent the whole movie going, oh my gosh.
If anything, it focuses more on Chris Pine's body than hers.
This is beautiful. This is wonderful. And you could feel that the whole way through. I loved it. Please don't turn me
and that's why, even though I enjoyed the first Avengers movie, there's some shots of the female, Black Widow and some of the other female characters that are so sexualized. That that's another reason I worry, is because I don't want a sexualized Batgirl. We already got that in Batman: The Killing Joke, and and then that movie. I've never seen it, but I've heard so many bad things about The Killing Joke because they sexualized Batgirl.
I heard bad things, and I don't even run in that circle. So not good.
That's what I'm saying.
The problem with Batgirl is one of the most independent female heroes, besides Wonder Woman, of course. But the thing is, if you've seen the story of Batgirl, right, it's she joined Batman on her own.
Yep.
And one of her biggest love interests is Nightwing, which I'm pretty sure Nightwing is created to be the antithesis of all the hyper masculine male heroes, because if you see in the comics, he's jumping around, he's doing acrobatics, and then there's all the butt shots of him all the time. On the other hand, Batgirl just doesn't get that at all, pretty much. And and obviously there's the one of her biggest arcs was after The Killing Joke, she gets to become Oracle, which is, I'm still kind of annoyed that they retconned that in the comics, but oh well. But and I'm just really concerned because even though Joss Whedon has written some good female characters in his time, I still can't get over in Age of Ultron when the Hulk does the face plant in Black Widow's boobs.
Oh yeah.
Agreed. That bothered me more than even the whole than the baby storyline with her. You know what I mean? That was dude, that is not necessary. Don't do that.
I just can't reconcile that, I'm just so worried now because Batgirl is seriously one of my favorite characters in the entire DC. And I'm just so worried.
I don't blame you.
She might screw up something regarding that, such a beautiful, independent, intelligent character, because she doesn't even fall into the regular tropes of female characters that sometimes they're all pure and good and they're happy or something like that, and they're seductive or something. No, she's supposed to be a librarian, a mousy, tiny, skinny librarian, and she becomes a hero. I don't know.
That's cool. You're right. What a wonderful story we could get. Oh crap. Okay, I'm still gonna keep an open mind, but I'm worried.
I'll because it's the DCEU, I'm gonna keep an open mind, but my worry is kind of gonna be there until I see the movie. So I guess we'll see what that.
All right, you're right. It's gonna be there.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. All right, so to move on to the next thing, this next bit. If you want to throw in your 2 cents, you can real quick.
Sorry, go ahead.
My own concern about Batgirl is that, for the love of God, don't put a romance with Bruce Wayne. That's disgusting.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
He belongs to Nightwing. Okay, I'm sorry. This is completely unrelated, but like, the Killing Joke movie was the most unnecessary piece of media to ever have been created. Like, don't do it. Why was that movie made? Why?
I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I've heard nothing but bad things about it, so I don't even want to get there. Yeah.
Watch
It was
it.
so painful. It was so painful.
Yeah.
Just
That's
It-
not
like the original Killing Joke is pretty bad for its treatment of Batgirl.
Yeah.
Like on its own, it stands as a pretty well written story, even with its bad treatment of Batgirl. But the movie just made it 20
Worse.
times worse.
Yeah. Because
With,
the
like,
whole
the
romance
romance
between
and-
her, yeah. Again, Joss, if you're listening to this, which you probably isn't, Joss, just please don't screw up this movie. That's all we ask. All right,
We will give you some faith, man. Just
just don't, yeah.
keep that in mind.
Keeping our hopes up. We believe in you.
Yeah, you can do this,
Yeah.
man.
All right. So the next thing I
talk
wanted
to
to,
Zach, you know.
the next thing I wanted
go
to
ahead.
talk about, this is a really minor thing, but a couple weeks back, some images were released of Justice League popcorn buckets.
Yeah.
that had
Yeah,
Superman
the
on
ones
them.
with Superman on them, right?
Yep. And I loved seeing, even though like we haven't officially seen Clark in any of the trailers yet, I'm just like seeing Henry Cavill back in the marketing of Justice League, even though it's on popcorn buckets, mind you. It's just like this universe. It started with him, and to have like the team come together because of Superman's sacrifice, and that the world, like Bruce and Diana, want to create this team to help save the world because Superman's no longer there. I could talk about this all day. I love how the universe has been built because of Superman, and how I don't know how they're gonna bring Superman back in, because in the comics it's after he was killed by Doomsday, he needed like all this technology from like his Fortress of Solitude and all this other stuff to bring him back, and there was like all these different characters who tried to take up the Superman mantle, and like that's how they introduced the character of Superboy and all this stuff. But
It's a big mess.
yeah, but I think Zach is gonna handle it really well. And yeah, go ahead.
An interesting thing, I was watching yesterday Blu-ray behind the scenes of Batman vs Superman, and Jeff Jones said a very amazing thing, like Superman started DC Universe in 1938 with Action Comics #1, and it was Superman who started the DCEU, and seeing him on, as you said, on Justice League promotionals, even though it's popcorn buckets, it still feels like I don't know. It makes me excited even more, because right now every little piece of Henry Cavill as Superman, it's like a blessing on a fan like us, on a fans like us.
We're so starved.
Is that he's wearing his blue costume, even though Henry Cavill teased a black costume on his Instagram account. And I was reading a theory. You remember that footage of behind the scenes of Justice League where we saw a tiny bit of Henry Cavill in his costume from Batman v Superman?
Yep.
Yes.
And I was reading some theories that we might get some flashbacks of Superman actions on Earth from those 2 years time skip that was at the beginning of Batman vs Superman. And I think that would be amazing to see what he was up to in those 2 years on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope
That would
we
be really interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that, but it's. I don't know, I'm kind of mixed on that, because I mean, while I do appreciate how Zach has used flashbacks in the past, I want to see Clark, and I just want to see Clark in the present and come back from
We
the
just
dead.
want Superman back.
You know? I just like not to discount those theories. I mean, we might see flashbacks of him in that time, and I would be interested to see like what Superman was up to in those 2 years, and how the world was viewing him at the time, and how he was acting, and how his relationship with Lois was developing. But at the same time, in terms of Justice League's story, I want Clark to come back and see how the world has reacted to him being gone, and how this group of heroes have come together because of him, and I want him to be even more inspired by humanity, and to be kind of like the Superman that we know and love from the comics.
Yeah.
Not that he hasn't been, but to finally
No.
know that like he's been loved and accepted by the world, and
Appreciated,
he has a group of people
Yeah.
that stand and fight with him.
You also would like to see his face when he sees that Lois put his ring on her finger.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, I'm there for that. I also want to see his face when he figures out that Bruce decided to, organize the whole Justice League because, of him.
Yeah.
I really need to see that.
Now, my quick question to you: at what point do you think Superman's gonna come back in the movie?
Towards the end.
Not.
By the last 30 or 50 minutes, I
Yeah.
think he's going to
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
one thing, if you look at the trailers for the movie, you see like the Flash running up to Superman's memorial, and you see, and the behind the scenes stuff, you've seen like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Flash defending the memorial. I think I brought this up in our little group chat, that I think they're going to be defending the area around the scout ship because they're going to be using the scout ship to bring Superman back. At least that's what I think personally.
Well put. Yeah,
That's going to be amazing and very true to the comic books of using Kryptonian technology to bring Clark back. That would be nice.
Yeah, agreed. And that's pretty much what we have left is the scout ship, so.
Yeah.
So,
And
I'm
I
just
can't
really
wait to see the
excited.
look on Lex Luthor's face when he sees Superman again.
Oh my right.
You saw it.
I have a question for you though. Would you like to see Superman teased in one of the future trailers, or you want to see him only at the theater when the movie comes out?
I don't
That's
mind a
a really
tease.
question.
I don't want to see a full reveal until the movie. Even though I think most of us know he's going to be in the movie, I just think it'd be more of an emotional thing if it's held off until we see the actual movie.
Yes,
Yeah.
completely agree. And I will say, like, oh gosh, where was I going? I just lost my train of thought. Okay. We were talking in Batman versus Superman and, and other things and stuff, how much Zack wants to make the DCEU world, our world. Like, he hires, news anchors and other people and stuff like the crossover that actually have an identity in our world so that they're there on screen too. And so he's making it very clear. This is, the same. This is the same world. That the cinematic world is our world. And so if that's the case, I admit, like, when all the little tiny mini trailers for the characters started coming out, we were all stoked because we were really hoping that there would be a Superman one, and then there wasn't, and it was like, okay. And I admit that, like, we were disappointed, but I also found it really cool because if this is pursuing Zack's idea that this is the universe, they all think he's gone. They buried him and he's dead. They're sure he's not coming back. They have no hope or even an inkling of that idea, even though we know it's going to happen, And so that means that they're feeling that loss and that hurt and that, that emptiness without him. And if they have to feel it, you know what? This is the same world, so that means we have to feel it. That means we have to want a shiny trailer and not get it. That means we have to want to see him in the promo and not really get it. And that means we have to really hope that he's going to be there, but not really get reassurance that he's there until it happens in the theater. And then we're all like, and then it will be as close as it could be to the characters in the universe having that same feeling that he's back that we get. And I'm so on board for that. So I kind of want it to happen that way.
Me too.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And the one thing I also, the final subject that I kind of wanted to bring up, kind of tying into what we were just talking about is, Jeff Johns tweeted in response to Heroic Hollywood on Twitter, El Mayembe, and he was teasing new great Superman moments in Justice League. So what are you guys expecting from Superman's return in the movie? I mean, we already kind of talked about it, but just overall, your guys' thoughts on what we could see in the return of Clark in the movie.
Well, I can't actually describe, but I hope that his return will be the best scene of the entire movie that everyone will be talking about. It's like, even when haters will be coming out of theater, they will be like, well, I didn't like Justice League movie, but that scene when Superman returned, God, that was amazing. Even I loved that.
Yep. Okay, so you want him to be the Wonder Woman, of Batman versus Superman, basically. You want him to be the Wonder Woman moment in Justice League. I'm totally on board for that, and that's kind of what I am hoping for, is that it's not really specifically spelled out that he's coming back until he's back, and then it's monumental and shifts the tide of whatever chaos is going on, so that's all I'm there for.
I actually think that Justice League trailer might have some teaser of Superman's return when, there is this shot of all Justice League and they were like looking into the sun or something like that. I think they were witnessing Superman's return, and when you see Lois looking into the sky, I think she was seeing Clark like flying right to her to sweep her off her feet. I hope, at least. But I think we might have saw some teasers of characters reacting to his return, and I hope it's true.
Yeah, me too.
I just want me some Superman. Also, though, that scene every time, and I gotta say, I giggle every time I see that trailer, because they're all looking big and bad and awesome, and then Barry's grinning like a dork, and I'm so excited to meet this Barry. I watched the TV show, and I don't hate it. I love that Barry, but some of the way they've written it, stuff like that, kind of dumbs him down and makes him a little bit, less of what I was told the comic book Barry was. And so to look at him and see his like youthful exuberance, bubbly gooberiness, and then he's like, I'm in immediately because he needs friends. And then he's standing there and he's like, this is so cool. I was like, oh my gosh. And you can tell his lair, he's doing it all himself. He doesn't have some team at Star Labs doing everything for him. So he's really intelligent and really driven himself. And I am stoked to meet this Flash. I am really excited, and he seems so adorable already. I'm like, crap, I've got another son.
I think Ezra Miller really gets who this version of Barry is, because I enjoyed the Flash TV show too. It was my favorite show at one point, but this past season has been kind of a letdown because of the way they've handled the character, and he's not as independent as he is in the comics, and he's so first of all, the show mishandles his speed all the time. Like he can travel through time. Yeah, he gets hit by a gorilla. I don't understand. I can go on and on about my problems with that, but I think
I get
first of all, the way that they've shot his speed, I think he's made the Flash look like such a visually interesting character because of the way they've handled his speed, and
the costume.
And the costume, I love the costume personally.
Yep. I cannot wait. He looks just amazing, and the way they picked him, just the character, everything about him. Still that reveal where Bruce throws the Batarang, and they show in a slowed time, him step back and then recognize it and take the time to look back and then turn around and grab. Everything about it is so cool. I really can't wait for him. So I can't wait to meet all the characters here. I'm stoked for him, Cyborg, bring me Aquaman. I'm good for all of it.
Me too.
And then I get to see the ones that I already love. I admit, I saw Wonder Woman and it was like, well, I love that. Holy crap, and I get more of her in November. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm here for all these guys, and I cannot wait to get this movie.
Me too. But also, quick question, since we're still kind of talking about the Flash, do you think Bruce is going to bring up the fact that he already kind of met Barry in Batman vs. Superman?
That's interesting.
Okay, that's a good thought. But I'm going to say no, just because Bruce tends to keep things close to his chest.
That's true.
Like, he might recognize and acknowledge that was Barry in time once he figures out some things about speed travel and, speed force and travel and all that kind of thing. But I don't guarantee he's going to turn to Barry and be like, you were too soon, you dumb. Because it's not the right moment, because Barry would have no idea what he was talking about.
Yep.
And it's entirely possible Barry will be like, hey, I'm going to go back in time and warn you, and then everything will be okay. And he'll be like, yeah, you go ahead and do that. Because he already knows how it turns out,
Yep.
And so, it's just a kind of a throwaway, thanks for the help, kid. But that, anyway, we're just going to keep moving on,
Yep.
I don't really guarantee that he would turn and spell it all out for Barry.
No, yeah.
I think also Batman is a smart person, and I think he would recognize the consequences of more people knowing about the future. The more people know about the future, the more consequences there will be. So I think he will keep that in mind.
Yes, totally agree.
As for Superman Return, do you want to hear his theme score or his flight scene score?
His theme, personally.
I want to hear his theme. I want to hear the full-fledged, doing this theme, so, yeah.
Even though, unfortunately, Hans Zimmer is no longer going to be scoring the DCEU.
I know.
I'm happy that his successor is someone who we can trust with the score. Because I don't know if have any of you seen Mad Max Fury Road?
Yes, that was one of my favorites before Batman v Superman came out.
So Junkie XL did the score for that, and if you listen to that movie, that score is so like Junkie XL is very like the way he scores films. I think is very similar to how Hans does. So I think we're in good hands with Junkie. That he's going to keep the same themes from Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman.
Yes. I agree, and they worked very, very well together, and so I agree. I'm not worried about the score. I'm sure it will be great, and I will love it, but I've been in love with Hans Zimmer's stuff since I was a teenager, and so, like, way before he ever started doing, Man of Steel or anything else, and so it was just a sad thing to see him move on, but I completely understand creatively why he did, but I love that man's music. I have always loved that man's music. It strikes a chord in me that others just don't, and so I was sorry to see him go. But I agree. I think we're in safe hands with Junkie XL. I have no problems with him. He does good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and at first, like, I'll admit, like, I was sad when I heard that Hans wasn't going to come back. But at the same time, like, for him, he was even talking about, like, how hard it was going to be to do the Batman score again, which is why he brought in Junkie XL to begin with. But he's been, first of all, he's been scoring movies for years. Like, he scored, like, The Lion King. He's done all these amazing film scores over the last few decades, and for him, like, to do these big blockbusters, for him, it's probably, like, emotionally straining to do, because he has to come up with these, like, memorable themes, and I'm glad he's not the type of person to, like, step away and be like, oh, after all that, like, oh, actually, I hated the movie, I hated working on it. Like, no, like, he's, like, when he's out there touring, he still plays the Man of Steel score, and even now, he includes, like, the updated Wonder Woman score when he's out there touring across the country, and I just, like, he's not like a petty person. Like some film composers have gone on in the past about, like, how, like, oh, they did a movie and then after the movie they hated the movie and they hated working on it, which is why they didn't come back for the sequel. Like James Horner, who he scored, like, Titanic and Avatar, and unfortunately he passed away recently. He scored the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, and then Hans came in and did the second movie, and James Horner came out and said, oh, I wasn't going to do the movie because it was going to be awful, so that's why I didn't want to put my hands on it. And Hans, I think, coming into another composer's world, and I think he did a fairly good job with that Amazing Spider-Man movie. Granted, the movie wasn't the best, but I think he's never had a bad score, and it sucks to see him go from the DCEU, and I wouldn't doubt if he ever came back. He might come back down the line at some point. But it does suck to see him go. So, I think with that being said, was there anything else you guys wanted to talk about? I mean, that's pretty much everything I had.
I think there's stuff we can save for, like, next time.
Yeah.
I think we've covered enough in 1 hour.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That flew by real quick. And also, I mean, we kind of talked about this before. I'll just kind of throw this in there. Because I just showed you guys the new Funko Pops from Justice League and Wonder Woman. That showed Aquaman with the mother box, and they showed Bruce Wayne and Aries from Wonder Woman. And as you guys know, I love Funko Pops, so like seeing those, like, Funko really wants me to go broke, because first of all, I already have so many Pops as it is. I have almost every single Batman vs Superman one. I have, like, a bunch of Suicide. Like, I love their Pops. So seeing that today, it literally came out, like, right before we started recording too. So seeing that, I'm like, oh, like, I need those right. But
in Justice League, do you expect to see some teasers about, I don't know, what will come next in DCEU? Like in Batman vs Superman, we had the Flash from the future and all those shots of Justice League on Lex's files. Do you expect something like that about other characters of DCEU in Justice League?
Maybe. If anything, if they don't tease or show Darkseid, I think they might do that towards the end of the movie. If not, they might set up some of the standalone features. Like, they might set up like Aquaman more, or certain other characters more. But I'm not sure, because Justice League is, like, the thing that, like, the DCEU has been building up to this point. I don't think it necessarily needs to set up much, because that was the movie that everything's been kind of set up towards. But I don't know. I can't really imagine anything other than, like, Darkseid or Aquaman or some of the standalone characters, them teasing. Unless they tease like I don't know, like Brainiac or something along those lines, it's hard for me to imagine who else they could possibly be teasing other than Darkseid.
Well, I think they will be teasing a supporting cast of each individual character from Justice League, like they have.
Yeah,
They
Iris
have
West.
Iris
Oh,
and
yeah.
James Gordon.
Oh yeah, Kiersey
The actors-
Clemens.
Kiersey Clemens.
You're
yeah.
right. Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, I agree. I think it'll be more toward the solo films that we're going to get us interested in them. I know we see Barry and his father in jail. You know, we get a little bit of Iris. We know Mira's in it, and so I think, yeah, it's probably going to push us more towards the solo movies, which is good because I'm here for those ones too. So.
No, yeah, me too. All right, so I think with that being said, that's kind of probably going to be it from us. So if you guys want to get and go around, ask where people can find you on social media.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I'm Ruben Blau pretty much everywhere on Twitter, Tumblr, any social media that is out there.
You guys can find me on like my Tumblr, True Man of Steel, or here on YouTube, Nerdy Nick, or follow me on Twitter at Nerdy Nick too.
I'm Story Advocate on Tumblr, and really beyond that, there's not a whole lot. I barely Twitter, and there's nowhere else that really matters. So.
Yeah, I'm Batch Activity on Tumblr. That's about all I have.
Nick, I would like to say thank you for bringing us all together. It was a really great opportunity to discuss all these DCEU things with other fans.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to do this, because like I don't get very many opportunities in my everyday life to talk about the DCEU with anyone really. And of course,
right? They look at you funny when you bombard them with all sorts of excitement, you know, and they're like, it's just
yeah, and especially because like Katie and I have done this sort of thing in the past too with the commentaries we've done. And actually, well, Katie and I have been talking about doing a Suicide Squad commentary sometime in the near future. And if any of you guys are interested in doing that, we'll probably end up. If you guys want to let me know if you guys are want to take part in it.
Are you going to watch extended version of Suicide Squad?
Oh, I think. Good.
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, if everyone has it, then yeah.
Difference, honestly.
It's not. I just appreciated the little extra bits. They were really nice, and the bar conversation was more of what I wanted because I had seen some of it in the trailer, and then I didn't get it, and I was like, oh, I know there's more, and so it was nice to have the whole thing. So.
Yeah, so we'll probably do that at some point in the next few weeks. And again, if you guys want to join in, feel free. And I'm going to try to do this podcast at least once a week or every other week, depending on everyone's availability and everyone's work schedule or whatever. You know, because I have a job too, so it's harder for me to plan these things. But I'll do my best to try to get this organized every week or so. It's when everyone can. Because like it was a lot of fun doing this with you guys. I'm glad we're all able to come together and talk about all this stuff. Because again, I don't get the chance to do this very often, so. I'm glad that I have this group of people and all of you to talk about with.
Yeah, me too.
Yep, same.
All right, so with that being said, that's going to be it. So again, thank you guys all for joining in. That was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day or evening, whatever time it is.
Yeah, go to sleep, man.
All right, I hope you all have a good one. It was nice talking to everyone.
See you next time.
All right.
Okay, see you.
Thank you everyone who was listening, and until next time, have a good one.